Even Santa likes blacks. Come on. Oh, White Christmas. Which is what somebody else would. Okay. Guys, I feel like we got off the wrong foot with that lovely Lee. You're in a relationship. But Santa wrote you a joke this year. I couldn't fuck you anyway. Because I have a clause in my contract. That was gold. It's fucking gold. I actually wrote that today as me, assholes. I wrote that for Santa. Lee.
I laughed.
Yeah, well, yeah. Because you get to be held every night, Lee. That's why you laughed. You get love. Bitch. You don't know what love is, Lee. Boys and girls, you ready to keep the show going on? Everybody, you ready to keep this jolly old show going on? And it's with my great pleasure to introduce your next comic. Someday I wish Mrs. Claus was. She's absolutely hilarious. She's here for you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Welcome the very funny Lark Miller.
Season's greetings. Happy Hanukkah. Anybody celebrating that too? Good people. My family is actually from Israel, but it's kind of my family's actually Christian though, which always kind of throws people for a bit of a loop. I always feel like a bit of a fish out of water. Like a Christian from the Holy Land. When did that happen? How long have Christians been there? Like, since the beginning of time? That's kind of how we tell time. So, 2014 years and counting. So my mom is actually from Nazareth, which is the hometown of Jesus. And if you're not familiar with Jesus, he led a movement called Occupy Jerusalem. And my mom doesn't understand me doing stand-up comedy. The other day she said to me, she goes, I don't understand why it is you feel the need to get up in front of people and talk to them. Nobody from Nazareth would ever do that. Really, Mom, nobody you can think of from Nazareth was into public speaking. She's like, well, that's completely different. Jesus wasn't out there trying to be funny. I like to think Jesus probably was really funny, but like all of his jokes were in Aramaic, and then they got translated into Greek and then into English. Of course, they're not going to be funny anymore. Like my mom insists that Jesus wasn't funny. I find it really hard to believe that like Jesus and the 12 disciples, 13 Jews are traveling around, nobody said anything funny. Finally, my mom was like, okay, Jesus wasn't trying to be funny, but like maybe some of the disciples would kind of warm things up, say a couple of funny things. But like, I kind of wonder if like Jesus had certain disciples that he'd have like open for him in certain neighborhoods. Like maybe if Jesus was speaking in a temple in Jerusalem, like he'd have to bring Matthew for that. Because Matthew had been like a tax collector, and he probably has like all this material about money changers, and like he could do an awesome Pontius Pilate impression. But like Matthew probably could never open for him in Galilee. Because it's like a fishing place, a fishing neighborhood. Like he'd need Peter for that. Because he's a fisherman. It's like if you're gonna play a fishing village, you need like like, you need to have a lot of material about gluttony and sloth, and like, I'm sure like Peter had like a solid 20 on sodomy. A lot of people kind of speculate about what Mary Magdalene was doing hanging around with all the disciples, and I like to believe that she was a disciple too, but like it was probably really difficult because like anytime she came up with like a really good parable, I'm sure that all the other disciples are like, Jesus wrote that parable for her. Jesus writes all of Mary Magdalene's parables. Why would Jesus write her parables? She's totally sleeping with him for stage time in parables. That's how she is. So, I'm happy to be here. What was I gonna say? Oh, do we have any single people here tonight? How do you feel about sex on the first date? I always feel like it's really rude not to offer. I've been getting some dating advice, and one of my guy friends told me what I have to do is I have to start playing hard to get with men because men are hunters. But that doesn't make any sense to me because like a hunter never really goes after the hardest prey to get. Like a lion may admire that zebra with like the perfectly toned body and stuff, but that's not the one he lunges for. He goes for the zebra with like the dislocated hip. He's like completely dehydrated. Yeah, she's only a foot away from the watering hole. That's what he finds attractive. So, one of my guy friends, he told me that he has this fantasy about us. And he said his fantasy is that him and I are like the last two people left on Earth because that way I have to have sex with him. But I'm thinking if there's been some kind of apocalypse and like him and I are like the last two people left on Earth, I don't have to have sex with him. I'm gonna have to eat him. Personally, I feel like if a man buys you dinner, you should never feel obligated to have sex with him. But if he's gonna be your dinner, you should at least give him a hand job.